Welcome to Unmasked by Nisha, a series created to bring clarity, language, and understanding to the layers of narcissistic abuse through a survivor's lens. I started this episode to bring awareness to something I didn't even know existed. I had no idea what narcissism was. I didn't understand the cycle of abuse. I don't think I'd ever been in a relationship like that before. So when it happened, it completely blindsided me. I was in a relationship with a man who displayed strong signs of covert narcissism for 2 years. And even after I left, I spent another 2 years not fully understanding what had happened to me. It wasn't until I revisited the narcissist that Pandora's box opened. I finally saw the monster for what it was, and when I looked back, everything suddenly made sense. That's when I understood how people get pulled into cults. The psychological control really is that powerful. And I want to pause here and say this to my fellow survivors. Go easy on yourselves. You survived some of the most damaging, psychological, and I would even say spiritual warfare a human can experience. You were not stupid. You were not weak. This wasn't about willpower. This was about psychology, trauma, and how our bodies chemically respond to our environment in ways that keep us stuck longer than we ever intended. Please give yourself some grace. Because this is usually where people ask, why didn't you just leave? And the answer is, it's psychological. I lost myself. When I woke up from this, I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to trust my instincts or even how to feel safe inside my own thoughts. It was like my inner world had been completely rewired, and I was left trying to figure out who I was without his voice in my head. Like so many people, I thought narcissism just meant someone who was vain or obsessed with themselves. I had no idea how devastating or how widespread this actually is. It doesn't only happen in romantic relationships, it happens in families too. Parents turn on you, siblings turn on you, and the damage runs deep. The narcissist's greatest fear is exposure. That's why I'm sharing this from the victim's perspective, so people can recognize the signs, understand the cycles of abuse, and break them. This experience changed my life. It cost me relationships, including a longtime friendship, and it forced me to face unresolved childhood trauma I didn't even know I was carrying, the very wound that attracted the narcissist in the first place. Healing from this abuse has been a long, messy process. It's been lonely, and it's also been an awakening. And one thing I know for sure now is this. I no longer judge people by how they treat me in moments. I judge them by what they consistently show me. Like many survivors, I was repeatedly told by him that I was the narcissist. After hearing it often enough, doubt set in. I began questioning myself, wondering if I really was as cruel, selfish, or damaging as he claimed. So I went looking for the truth. I immersed myself in research, not to prove him wrong, but to check myself, honestly. If I was harming someone, I wanted to fix it. And what I discovered changed everything. None of the clinical descriptions fit me, but every trait, every pattern, every behavior experts describe pointed unmistakably to him. The volatility, the manipulation, the emotional chaos. He wasn't just difficult. He wasn't misunderstood. He was a covert narcissist. And that realization marked the beginning of my deeper understanding of narcissism, not as a casual insult or a personality quirk, but as a clinically recognized pattern of psychological abuse that takes hold slowly, quietly, and without warning. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Before I go any further, I want to pause and give a simple framework, especially for those new to this conversation. Here's an important distinction I want to make early on. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, is a personality disorder characterized by a long-term pattern of grandiosity, a deep need for admiration, lack of empathy, and difficulty taking responsibility for one's behavior, often accompanied by sensitivity to criticism and a tendency to blame or project onto others. Narcissism is a personality trait spectrum. Narcissistic abuse refers to the behaviors that often show up in relationships: love bombing, gaslighting, intermittent reinforcement, devaluation, discard, triangulation, and hoovering. They're related, but they are not the same. Narcissism is a personality disorder. Some people may be born with a predisposition for it, while others it develops in childhood, often in one of two types of environments: a parent who chronically overpraises and places the child on a pedestal, or a parent who is emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or neglectful. Either extreme can lead a child to survive by developing what's known as a false or inflated self. When I say narcissists build a false self, I mean they create a version of themselves that feels bigger, stronger, more impressive, or more special than they actually feel inside. A protective mask designed to defend against deep insecurity and shame they cannot face. At the core of narcissism is a fragile sense of self. Because that vulnerability feels intolerable, narcissists struggle with self-reflection. They are ego-driven, highly sensitive to criticism, and have a chronic need for admiration and validation from others. To maintain that fragile self-image, they often attempt to control the narrative, the relationship, and eventually the emotional reality of the people closest to them. So control becomes the coping mechanism. What they are unwilling or unable to face in themselves is placed onto you. Projection becomes one of their primary tools. They take what they are doing, the lying, the manipulation, the blame, and place it onto you. Over time, especially when this is layered with other abusive behaviors, you begin to internalize those projections and start believing that you are the problem. When you go to a narcissist and say, "Hey, this hurt me," accountability almost never follows. Instead, the focus shifts. Suddenly, you're told you're too sensitive, too reactive, or somehow the one causing the harm. That's exactly what happened to me. He had me convinced I was this horrible person doing horrible things to him, when all along it was actually him. That's how dangerous psychological abuse is. It distorts your reality from the inside out. Anytime I brought up an issue, there was no self-reflection. He never paused to look at his own behavior. He just interjected and projected every single time. And that's classic. That's projection in action. It protects their ego, deflects responsibility, and keeps you stuck questioning yourself while they maintain control. So it serves both to protect their ego and to maintain control. And when you continue to question it, gaslighting often escalates, subtly distorting reality until you start trusting their version of events over your own. Gaslighting isn't random. It's how control is maintained while keeping you off balance. I never realized how dangerous gaslighting was until after this experience. And that's the most straightforward way to understand what NPD is and why the dynamic becomes so confusing, disorientating, and damaging for survivors. At the core of narcissism is a fragile sense of self, because that vulnerability feels intolerable. Accountability feels like annihilation. What they are unwilling or unable to face in themselves is placed onto you. And that's why when you say, "This hurt me," accountability rarely follows. Instead, you're told you're too sensitive, too reactive, or actually the one causing harm. This isn't conflict, that's projection. And when you keep questioning it, gaslighting escalates, subtly distorting reality until you begin trusting their version of events over your own. Gaslighting isn't random, it's how control is maintained. And if you're listening to this and something inside you is stirring, confusion, grief, anger, or even relief, I want you to know that's normal. Nothing about this experience is small, and nothing about your response to it means there's something wrong with you. If this episode helped you name something you felt but couldn't explain, that matters. If it made you feel a little less alone, that matters too. Join me in the next episode where we talk about how narcissistic abuse becomes psychological and spiritual warfare. We'll unpack how identity is slowly eroded, why the abuse doesn't feel dangerous at first, and how conditioning, not weakness, keeps survivors stuck. I'll break down the frog in warm water dynamic and share the moment everything finally clicked for me, when I saw the pattern and couldn't unsee it. And let me say this to you, survivor, hear me. You're not crazy. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are in the middle of waking up, and that takes courage. God didn't let you survive this to leave you stuck in it. What tried to break you is about to become what builds you. Healing isn't linear. It comes in layers. Some days you'll feel strong, other days tender, but every moment of clarity is you coming back to yourself. This is just the beginning, and we'll keep talking, learning, and exposing these patterns together. Thank you for being here with me.